Hello, my name is Cheryl Lugin. I'm author of Madness on the Brink of Eco-Apocalypse, a book which not only highlights our many eco crises, but also showcases some of the groups that are doing something about it. Welcome to Saving Ourselves Communities Act. In this video series, we are not here to talk about saving the planet. The Earth is going to be just fine no matter how many species go extinct or how much the climate warms. Our question here today is, why aren't we doing more to save ourselves, humanity, from this eco-apocalypse? I get it, figuring out what to do on your own is hard and isolating. So we're here to learn from communities who are already working together to do what they can to preserve Earth's life support systems and inspire the rest of us. Today we are here chatting with Heather McLeod. Heather McLeod's podcast is called Something Different This Way Comes. She's an award-winning radio journalist and author. She's also a founding organizer of the Northwest Climate Gathering of Thunder Bay, Ontario, Canada, which is one of the groups I feature in the book, and that's why I've invited her to speak with us today. Welcome, Heather.
Thank you.
Our first question here is always to touch a bit of grass, so to speak. So if we could look out that window behind you, what would we see nature-wise?
Well, I'm actually calling from my office, which is in the middle of a great and beautiful and rich marsh that kind of divides Thunder Bay into two parts. And they tried to turn it into office buildings. I'm in one of them. But just outside of me, you can see that marsh, and we get so much wildlife around here, from geese to foxes and deer. And if I look even at the little bit of land at the edge of our parking lot, I see all of these native plants that are just making themselves at home. It's pretty great.
Well, it sounds lovely. I am in Los Angeles, very different environment, and yet I'm in an older residential neighborhood with lots of trees, including a 50, 60 foot tall Atlas cedar in my front yard, which is, I like to think of Atlas holding up my world. So nature is very important to me too. Um, so Heather, when I first reached out to you on advice how to get people involved, you said throw a party. That sounded good to me. And is that how the Northwest Climate Gathering came about?
Absolutely. Actually, coming out of COVID a little under 2 years ago, gosh, it's all gone by fast. A young organizer, her name's Maddie, put a call out to people she knew to ask other people they knew that were doing things that matter, and said, we're tired. We need to reconnect. What could we do to really get up to date and up to speed and be reinvigorated? So that was August of 2023. And I was one of the people who showed up at the first get together. About 50 of us presented stuff. 2 months later, over 2 days in two community spaces, and another couple hundred came.
Wow.
Um, so it obviously sparked a bit of a need to
Hmm.
reconnect and to feel like you know what's going on around you, and not just what there is to worry about beyond you. And we've learned a lot from that first one, and we've been building on it.
I feel that is a deep need that among people who are caring about what's happening with our planet is that it does feel very isolating, thinking I'm the only one. It's all on me to carry my reusable bag and somehow save the planet from. So yeah, it's a difficult feeling, and there's not a lot of other outlets for it.
Well, I feel like we have two things going on. Is one is we gave away our hard-won community spaces to private practice and to private algorithms who are motivated by making us scared and divided and divisive and condemning. And
Yeah.
all of that tone makes it hard to be vulnerable and honest, and actually do those sorts of hard conversations that build real relationships. So if your main way of sort of communicating an opportunity to connect or reaching out and staying connected has that sort of risk added to it, it makes us all feel vulnerable in the worst possible way.
Hmm.
It's that
Hmm.
much harder to kind of keep on putting your flag up and saying, I'm someone who cares and
Right.
is willing to connect. And then the second part of it was COVID. It made the in-person spaces that we just kind of naturally bump into other people and get a sense that, well, people are good. 99% of the time, if you're in distress and a stranger spots you, they'll help you out. Like, we're a pretty great species, and we lost that. So with
Yeah.
both that additional sort of preying upon our willingness to connect and loss of spaces in which we don't even have to seek it out, we just found it. I think we're in a really tough place right now, and it's scary to say I want to be in person with someone, and or I want to be myself with someone and dare find out, let them know what I know, and see what they think of that, and hear what they have to say, because it's probably going to be good.
Yeah. Yeah, and being green, being eco-friendly has gotten rather a bad rap among a big part of our cultural norms anyway. And I write about this in the book too. And in fact, I just don't even call myself environmentalist anymore because it's just fraught with weight of all these implications. And yet it's another added layer for me of being very vulnerable about what I care about so very much. So,
A lot of the solution building too has not been finding the pin to help you find the other people with the same pin, but really finding the action
mm,
that you can get behind. And if you focus on an action, whether
focus
it's,
on action.
updating our infrastructure so it's ready for the today that we know is here, and not still nostalgically determined to cling to standards that sufficed 50 years
Right,
ago,
right.
or making life more affordable, or making life fairer, or making, whatever, or making life more affordable, or whatever there's so many possible actions and so many good reasons to get behind them. If starting by saying I'm doing this because it helps save the planet and I'm worried about the future keeps people from engaging with you, that's perfectly valid to
Hmm.
put that aside
Hmm.
and say, here's something I've done lately or I've been thinking about doing and I'm excited
Right.
about it. What do you think? And find a common ground. I do think the kind of monikers is has been leveraged a lot in our cancel culture. And again, on the sinew we've given away that connects us, that is being manipulated. And so finding workarounds is often very pragmatic. Like,
Mm. So if we came to your next climate gathering, what would we talk about? What would we do? How do you structure it?
well, now we've spun out to several different things. So we just kind of keep each other in the loop through an email about every 2 weeks that
Mhm.
points out stuff going on in the community that are actions that might be of interest to different people. So you might have gotten one today that talked about monthly bike rallies that help people better understand the infrastructure we have and have an opportunity to have conversations about better managing that infrastructure and building on it so more people can get around by scooter, wheelchair, bicycle, foot, whatever. I would have news of some online learning opportunities that are free that people might be interested in. Would have an invitation to take part in a big Earth Day celebration we're planning for the 22nd of April, and details on that. Invitations to a few informational movies happening locally, and then invitation to our next potluck, which we have in a church basement. And when you come, there's a bit of an icebreaker, so you can get to know who else is there. You beforehand, you can take care of our ride sharing, so you can get there. If you show up without food, that is totally cool. What food is there is introduced so you know what you can eat and who made it. And then after the icebreaker and the meal, we have this space and we invite people to hold meetings if they want or lead conversations. One in the past has been about an introduction to protein alternatives for people that don't like meat, but don't really know what all those things are and how to use them. And one we have planned for the next one is about environmentally aware investment choices out there with 3 or 4 people with different areas of expertise willing to introduce what they can tell you about, and anybody else is welcome to join in that conversation. It's not very formal, in other words. You don't have to register beforehand. You do have to tell us your real name, and you do have to come in willing to actually make friends. And you also have to come in willing to be kicked out if you're an asshole. Like, I'm sorry. If you come in willing to tell us why we're wrong or the world is ending or whatever, I start with that this is a safe and inclusive space statement, and I make sure that that's defended. And you know what? Shoulders go down. Nobody's left yet.
Mm.
People do have, even those that do have their, elbows up, reasons why change that's they've heard about is not a good idea, are happy to put those elbows down and open their hands to something they can support. it does take a little bit of practice for us to figure out how to manage that space and get people to walk in and discover it, because once they do it once, they come back.
Well, what's the age makeup of the group? This is what I'm curious about. I know.
That's been a huge learning for us and really wonderful. So our first gathering, the people we reached out to included Fridays for Future leaders, as well as a lot of really well-established, most of them in their 50s and 60s and 70s now, longtime activists. And it was the gray-haired longtime activists who stuck it out. The younger people often came very excited. And actually, among the organizing group, we were half people in our 20s and half people in our 40s and 50s. But the younger people tended to come, taste it, and leave. So afterwards, we really focused on that. Like, how do we make something that serves everybody the whole time? And what we got was that sitting and listening wasn't all that attractive. We have tons of sources of information out there,
Right.
and it's kind of stressful. It's mostly telling you things that you have to digest and but the opportunities to talk, to connect with somebody, to have a one-on-one or group of 3 or 4 conversation, those were the gold in the mix. So we have been doing things like our potlucks and our icebreaker systems and our, many identifying many opportunities for action so that people can find what works for them and the people that share their interests. Since then, we've also, though, done a really focused outreach to high school students and elementary school students, working with our younger members to build those connections with teachers, to show up during lunch breaks, to make presentations in classrooms, and to include them in our general email, try to problem solve some of their getting places things. This is a really isolated group of teenagers now, even compared to the teenagers of Friday for Future before the pandemic that are now university students. They're living in a very different space where it's hard to get places, hard to gain the autonomy that I had as a teenager.
Mhm.
And so we are succeeding in getting them more and more in our groups. Certainly, we have a lot of university students participating. And every time we do get a group of high schoolers out to volunteer often or to help create the party sometimes, we're like so glad. And we get so much positive energy out of it.
That's awesome. Yeah, because what I tend to see, and maybe it's the circles I inhabit, is more people my age, people who have been caring and concerned for the what we're doing to the planet for many years, most likely, and I don't see a lot of overlap with young people and people my age. So
It takes
I'm,
a lot of effort
it,
because
but
those of us who've been talking about it for 30 years, we tend at 30 or 40 or 50 years, we talk with an acceptance of despair that
mm,
is very off-putting to young people.
acceptance of despair. I have
Despair
to write that down. That
that
is
is
right.
very off-putting to young people, and a
Right.
negativity that is very off-putting to young people. So
Yeah.
what they feel like is older people who care have just been talking and getting nowhere, so why would you listen to them anyways?
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly. And maybe they have a point.
But if they do listen to us, often we can help them having to reinvent wheels. We
Hmm.
can give them bridges and shortcuts, and we get so inspired by their insight and just the basic perspective of I'm at the brink of my lifetime.
Right.
I want to be part of making it better for all of us. Whereas when you've been at it for a long time, it's easy to say, well, I'm glad I won't be here for whatever happens next, right? Or I've seen that tried and it'll go south. And just have
Guilty.
this set down the burden perspective that just feels like dumping burdens if you're at the beginning of that journey. So having an intergenerational totally takes effort. And you have to ensure that you're not the older talking to the younger or the
Hmm.
older asking the younger to tell the older what to do. It
Mm.
has to be a conversation.
Conversation. Yeah.
And none of us are very good at conversation right now. Like, give yourself some tools to facilitate it, a lot of kindness, and no huge agendas. This was a failure because no, this was a success because I had a good time. I know who to
Mhm.
call next when I do want to put in a garden this spring. I've got like 3 people that'll help me figure out how to get going. Or when I do need someone to take care of my garden when I go off to be with my daughter this summer, I've got like 3 young people who would love to have the fresh carrots. Like, that's a win.
Yeah.
That's a huge win. And it's really hard to find those spaces right now. Even if we all go to a concert together, do you meet someone new at a concert or a movie theater or the library? You got
Yeah.
to create the spaces for connection and commitment to one another. So
Mm.
the ride share is huge too. The difference between saying, here, you can pick me up here, you drop me off there. I want to stop at my place so I can get my slow cooker, and showing up in the same space with somebody with their food from their traditional home and your food from your traditional home
Mm.
is
How does the ride
so
share
much more
work? How
connection.
logistically, how do you organize that?
Super, super low key. We send out our email to a few hundred people and we say, if you want to come and need a ride or are coming and can give a ride, let us know. And we hook people up. But
Okay.
we know everybody,
It's
right?
not a
So when I
website where you have to
say,
sign
I've
up
got a
and
ride for you
scan
from
and
so-and-so, I know so-and-so, right?
mm,
They've got 3 kids your age, or they live near your part of town, or whatever, right? I know
yeah.
so-and-so.
Mhm.
It's not strangers showing up and they offer a ride and I take up the ride. If the first time somebody offers is coming, they offer a ride, I would offer it to one of my people that needs to get to know that person,
Right.
right? That's how I
Right.
organize it because we're building relationships.
And I imagine the conversation on the way home is another layer to the processing of what just happened. Because,
Hugely.
yeah, because otherwise we
And
all get
getting
in our
people to
own
stick
cars and go
around
home and we
afterwards
think about it
too.
for ourselves. And
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, we our first few potlucks, we had icebreakers and then we had the meal, and then people would kind of break into conversations, and we found that they tended to go back with the people they came in with and didn't deepen the friendship. So we have
Mhm.
post-meal activities as well, games, sometimes conversations,
Oh,
sometimes
interesting.
it's just a news share. And sometimes we do things at the tables. We invite people to please eat at a table with people they don't know, and we put a talking stone or a conversation starter box or something like that at that table to help
Mhm.
encourage the time to go to new and scarier things, the vulnerable places where joy hides,
Yeah.
instead of the elbows up, safe feeling places that leave you untouched by the end of your hour in company.
Hmm. Hmm. Leaves you trapped in your own headspace, same as you were before you came in.
Absolutely. Yeah. 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 When you share your fears, you don't really diminish them as much as when you share your hopes, you strengthen them.
Mm.
So we do have to honor the fears. Sometimes you simply cannot get to a hope until you've expressed the fear.
Right.
But making sure you make room for the hope has also been a really powerful way to make more productive community time. And there's tons of tools out there. Like there's the Climate Cafe resources, there's environmental circles resources. There's all of these resources we've been pointed towards that give us our talking points, that give us our, group management tools, that give us options we can pull on if we feel like the time's not being really productive. And by productive, I mean fun. Like people are laughing and their faces wide open with joy, and they
Right.
leave like full of energy and power to make things happen. I feel like when we're always the audience, you almost forget your own autonomy, right? And
Mm-hmm.
and actually, we have enormous autonomy. It's terrifying to those that are trying to resist change. Is really how much we do, the impact of our small decisions. Um, like for instance, the what do they call it? They call it the national parks in your backyard or something, but there's an American-based organization that really works with people to understand that they manage some bit of land, and what they plant in that land is impactful. And if everybody managed their bit of lawn or the space beside their driveway
Right.
or the neighborhood park where nobody much plays soccer, but you could put in an oak tree differently, we could have as much nature regenerated as managing to turn great swaths of America into working parks again. It's the same thing with every single one of us. Like in our lives, we can be so impactful. Just takes the courage of being vulnerable to real relationships, not careful sanction, this is my job relationships, but real, you're going to see me mess up. You're going to need to forgive me. You're not going to be perfect. I'm
Right.
going to learn from you. You're going to probably be changed by me. That is worth doing.
I want to go back to something you said about laughter. I think laughter is such a great icebreaker, such a great barrier drop. I mean, we drop our defenses when we laugh, and we're more willing to engage, and it just feels good. I think so much of this is just, well, it is so heavy and so hard to process and depressing, and just focusing on all of that leaves us with very little energy to work with. And if I can, and that's why I use a lot of humor in my book, and that's why as this introvert, has even attempted stand-up comedy sets, because I just feel that laughter is so important in giving us the energy and also the interconnectedness to be able to do anything about this and feel good about it.
Absolutely. Yeah, because good drives action, right?
Mhm.
And bad stultifies it. Like,
I believe so. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And there is so many good ideas. And there's so much permission in laughing at our mistakes. And then you can learn from them, right? If you make a mistake and you just like despair of it,
Yeah.
it's really hard to try again with the learning that the mistake was offering. Yeah. But joy is huge. Joy is huge. It just gives you energy. And
Yes.
there's a reason why so many of our most culture changing icons are funny, right?
Yeah.
Funny pokes and then opens it up.
I know what that, I mean, we rely on our late night comedy shows to get us through difficult times because I mean, it's just so much better to process some of this stuff laughing than it is even a dark gallows humor. And I read a book about that. I'm going to put the name of it in the show notes because it's not coming to me now, about how humans have used gallows humor throughout time, through slavery, through all kinds of difficult situations to to get through. So I think it's powerful. Um, how has your participation in the climate gathering, how has it impacted your level of hope?
Hugely. I don't really realize how extraordinarily hopeful and future focused I am until I chat with people who aren't.
Yeah.
It's really huge. Like when when this journey began for me, I kind of thought that the environmental crisis and the climate crisis were things that I'd known about so long. I was an old hat at it, and I was probably, and then I realized I knew nothing current when my kids challenged me. And my first step was total despair. Like, what is going on? Why has so little happened? And you have to dig to find the change because it's profound. The impactful change is not a veneer. It's really about how we think about one another as being positive and not negative, as being opportunities, not risks, including our planet and all the other life on our planet. Like a healthy planet, a healthy ecosystem expands, it grows life. It doesn't eat itself, it doesn't diminish itself.
Right.
But we're so deeply set in this idea of extraction, finite resource, that very notion is terrifying, but it's
Mm.
also beautiful, right? So when you start thinking that people are all in wonderful opportunity, they're all here for a good reason with great resources, and everybody has more good sides than bad. Boy, that's a fundamental shift on everything, everything. And so more and more of what we could do differently fits under my, and it would be good for the planet blanket the longer I get into this world. And the more I have faith that we can do it, because it only makes sense. And then I
Yeah.
bump into people who think it's impossible, never will. And usually they're looking with a short lens, like our sense of what's doable has fit in within a 24-hour news cycle, it seems to me, in
Yes.
the last little bit, as
Yeah.
opposed to feasible doing, like raise a child, build a business. This takes time, but it's doable. Change
Mhm.
the world. It takes time. Up here in Canada right now, with your American leadership's decision to treat us as the enemy, and
I'm
really,
sorry for that, by the way.
I know you are. I know, and any others Americans that are even aware of it, probably many of them feel the same way. But it's been really interesting because it makes Canada go, oh, all right, if we're not just the little sister to the big brother next door, what can we do on our own?
Yeah,
Right? What
right.
can we do on our own? And so there's this enormous permission to revisit our current systems and explore autonomy, explore the relationships we have and what we expect of them in a way I would have thought impossible 6 months ago. It's
Hmm.
definitely a silver lining of a really big whacking big cloud, but it's still interesting and empowering to see so many people saying, oh, you know what? If we can grow more calories than we eat, why can't we feed ourselves? We'll just export less canola or whatever, right? There's all
Right.
these total paradigm shifts being suddenly thrown around in a way that seemed impossible just a few weeks ago.
That is what the hopeful side of myself says about the chaos that is happening in my country, is that in a way, this is part of what we've been wanting is to rethink and reimagine everything. It's not coming from the direction that I thought it would, hoped it would, and yet I do believe that there is, as you said, there's some benefit in saying, okay, why do we care about the Department of Education, or why do we care about the Environmental Protection Agency, and how better could it serve us?
Yeah.
I
What
hope that
are our
is,
expectations? What are our, and how
yes,
well founded are they? And what is our power to influence? Like,
absolutely.
I do feel there's been a lot more permission to be the audience and the critic than to be the one that sticks your neck out and says, I'll take on that ucky job, right? I'll show up. I'll dare to suggest. But we need the suggestions. We need the elbow grease.
Mm,
And there are opportunities to do things the way they should be done because you're the one doing it.
yeah. What one piece of advice would you give to someone who's very concerned about what's happening with our climate and our biodiversity and all of it, and just feels too depressed to do anything about it?
One more person, just one more person is so much more than none.
Mm,
The first person that comes to your mind is not going to be the person. It's going to be the person that makes you afraid of asking, probably
mm,
second or third. But if you can get to your seventh or eighth person in your life that you think you could make your safe space to get together, honor your fears, and dare to find a place for all that energy you have that wants to do something,
yes.
find that person. Even
Okay.
one more person
Yeah.
is so much more. And honor yourself and them with that gift of a relationship.
Is there anything else you would like people to know about the climate gathering?
Well, it's pretty cheap, right? Like, there's a lot of spaces that are underused in our world.
Hmm.
Yeah, it takes some effort to figure out how to get into them. They might be a park, they might be, the hallway of your mall, they might be a church basement. But claiming those spaces as community spaces is pretty damn cheap and a good way to get started in building real connections, not just virtual ones that are too easy to cancel.
I love this, all of this. Thank you. Um, how do people find you if they want to know more about what you're doing?
So the Northwest Climate Gathering has a website, nwclimategathering.ca. Um, and when we have our big annual gathering, that's where we start putting where it's happening, where it's going on. We have a little group of volunteers that are also planning to make all kinds of things happen there, but they're not up yet. So if you go to today, you won't see it. And if you want to see what I'm doing, my website is something different this way comes.ca. And you'll find podcasts there that are full of really cool people that I think are so inspiring. And and also you'll find a link to all of the things that inspire me. So I call it my bookshelf of good news. It's now thousands of titles, hundreds of titles, not thousands, but many, many things that are just good for the heart and the soul.
Oh, that sounds great. I will put those links in the show notes for sure. Well, thank you. I want to thank you, Heather, for chatting with me today. I appreciate everything you're doing to create community to act on climate. It is needed now more than ever, for sure. Um, if you've enjoyed this conversation, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe if you'd like to hear from more community change makers. You can also read about more inspiring groups in my book, Madness on the Brink of Eco-Apocalypse. And finally, if you have a group you'd recommend for this conversation series, be sure to email me. We want to give a voice to all who are caring for people, plants, and critters, because we sure can't wait for our government, the megacorps, or the oligarchs to do it for us. We are here to save ourselves.